Super Bowl 59 is finally here. It's Onorato and Miller, Chris and Ash and
No one saw the point.
Right,
it was underneath.
There's something also about a Super Bowl where you don't have real rooting interest. And I know
better or worse.
Well, people watching, I think, will say, well, that makes it worse because now I'm not all that interested. But I disagree. I think it's easier to enjoy the Super Bowl. And as much as I don't want really either team to win this game, I really don't care about it. I've called it the Super Bowl America did not want. As it gets closer, the more excited I find myself to be in anticipation of watching this game. I think it's going to be a good game. And the fact that I'm not emotionally attached to either side, I can root for my bets and I can root for just hopefully a good game.
Yeah, I think the one thing that is tough for me is I'm not invested, which is fun. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times, even if it's not, the worst thing is when your team is in it, because then you're emotionally, it's the best thing, but it's the worst thing. You're emotionally on another level. But if the Packers were in it, I could find a team to cheer for. And there are certain teams that I would certainly cheer for. This is a Super Bowl that I just don't want to cheer for either team. Mm-hmm. So that's tough because it's like, okay, I'm interested because it's the Super Bowl.
But you will find yourself rooting for a team one way or another.
Probably, and I'm really not sure which way that is yet.
It'll be the Eagles.
I think
You'll
so
be rooting
too.
against Kansas City.
I think so too.
I'll be rooting for the Chiefs. You'll be rooting for the Eagles.
I know. Maybe.
Okay.
I thought I was going to root for the Chiefs, and then as I was watching them last week or 2 weeks ago, I was just kind of like, I don't want to root for this team. Yeah, I don't want to.
We will make our picks. Obviously, we'll break down Super Bowl 59 to a greater degree than just who are we rooting for, and are we enjoying the fact that we are not emotionally invested on either side. Pete Alonso back to the Mets. I think it's a very big deal. We'll talk about that. And of course, the NBA trade deadline was wild even before the deadline. There was a lot that led up to that, and there's a lot to talk about, recap there as well. We're doing it all here on Onorato and Miller.
This is Onorato and Miller, sponsored by Alpenhaus.
Alpenhaus, Marcella's, Bev's, Novice, and Performance Industrial with us every single week
and
here.
You've got a voice. Your voice is back.
Sam is with us every single week. I'm mostly back.
Mostly.
Been doing a lot to take care of the voice and the throat, and it's mostly back. Sometimes you still get something a little caught
catches a little bit
in the throat. Sam says, can't believe he's going to say this, I have no interest in this game. Don't care who wins. But does that mean you will not watch?
Right. Like, I have no rooting interest, but I'm always interested in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Always.
Of course.
Even if it's two teams I don't like.
So, and I would say, I'll just speak for you. Tell me if I'm wrong. You are always interested in the Super Bowl. You may not always be interested in the World Series or the NBA Finals or the Stanley Cup Final, correct?
Correct. That is correct. I will always generally watch the World Series, at least, a handful of games. But yes, I will always watch the Super Bowl. And the difference is it's not a series. That's what makes it, that's the best part of it.
Troy says it's okay to root for a comet, Chris.
I'm not smart enough.
Me neither. There's something.
Spell it out for us.
Something
Troy.
Encrypted in there about me not rooting for the Eagles or not wanting to root for the
Halley's Comet. I'm racking my brain, but I'm not going to come up with it.
Yeah. Carol says she's probably going to be in the car when the game starts. Okay, 6:30 kick. Maybe headed to a party somewhere. My brother says game time food.
Game time food is pretty great.
2 kids. So I think sometimes to get the kids to just lock in and be quiet and pay attention to the game, put the good food spread out to bring them to the TV. There's no way they'll sit and watch that entire game.
Those kids will not eat any of that food, just so you're aware.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Well, more for us, more for them.
Yeah. Very
Like
true.
I'm making mac and cheese balls and wings and things like that. Not going to happen.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to the game here. Chiefs are a 1.5 point favorite as we do the show live on a Thursday night. I've seen some books have it as just a single point, but we'll put it at 1.5 here for our purposes to avoid any kind of push. And so it's as razor thin as it could get here, right? We've seen some Super Bowls where it's basically a pick 'em. This is as close as it gets to that. And to me, it's deference to Kansas City.
Yeah.
A team going for 3 straight Super Bowl victories, a team that has won 15 straight one-possession games. Vegas is saying, this is anybody's game, but we're gonna put it on Kansas City's side here because they've proven that they just win a lot of these close games.
To be the champ, you got to beat the champ, and no one has been able to do that yet. So,
do you find yourself ever rooting for history? Chiefs can become the first team in NFL history to win 3 straight Super Bowls. The Patriots never did it. The Niners never did. The Cowboys never did it.
No one's ever done it.
Isn't that something you want to see, to be able to say, hey, I saw X?
If it was the Giants, yeah.
Okay.
But for another team, that's not super interesting to me because I don't really like them. Teams start to become unlikable if they're not yours when they win so much.
Absolutely. I
it's
agree.
3 in a row, but 4 and 5, right? 4 and 5.
Yep.
It becomes
Cowboys won 3 and 4. Bradshaw's Steelers won 4 in 5 or 6
maybe.
So there have been those small dominant stretches, right? New England was weird because they went 10 years without a Super Bowl and still won 6 of them.
Yeah, you think back and it's weird when you look at I know it, but every time I look at it, I'm like, wow, it was 10 years in 10 between. Years. Like, that's crazy? A long time for a team that's really good.
Yeah, Carol says there are 2 favorite teams competing here. I didn't know about Philadelphia. I knew there was some Kansas City love, but maybe not Philly. Okay, so everybody wins on Sunday then for her. Again, 15 straight games decided by 7 or fewer points for Kansas City. And people would look at that and say, well, the luck runs out at some point. You're going to find yourself in a close game and you're not going to be able to win that one. Maybe it's on Sunday. Philadelphia 15-1 since they're bye in week 5.
Which it's amazing because
and they're winning by like 2 touchdowns on average.
And what they're doing this year is the exact opposite of what happened last year for them. I mean, they went in the tank 10-1.
Yep.
Totally went in the tank, and now it's the total opposite. They've really turned it on. I mean, 15-1 since week, that's as good as it gets.
Yeah. We'll make our pick in this game coming up later on in the show, but this is where we stand going into the Super Bowl.
How amazing is that?
Tied. Played this thing out for 18, 21, 2 weeks, whatever it is.
106 games is what that totals.
Good math, thank you. And we are tied with 1 game to play. And we picked some college football playoff games. We picked a national championship game.
Yeah. But we've picked 106 games, and we have an identical record.
And here we are.
Tied. And we were different enough,
Yeah. Yeah, and we each held amazing leads of probably 4 or 5 plus games, one way or the other. So we'll make our pick with the Super Bowl as the final game of the season. Yeah, you're right. You know what, Troy? It's so true. We just decided the beginning of the year, like, hey, let's make this thing interesting at the end. We'll just be tied at the end of it all. That's fine.
Nobody wants that. Yeah. Nobody wants a tie. It's like kissing your sister. We've covered state championship games that end in soccer ties and they're co-champs. It's the worst thing ever.
Do they still do that? Is that still a thing?
I'm pretty sure.
In New York State? Fix it.
Pretty sure.
What a joke. Also, don't even. They have a class. I don't know if they still do. I'm out of the game. A class C and a class double C. They claim them each.
Well, those are usually basketball.
To be sectional champs.
Yeah.
Then you have to decide who goes on to the state tournament. So actually, you aren't a sectional champ. I hate to break it to you because the sectional champions on every other level and every other sport go on to the state tournament. So just
don't get Chris started on high
co
school sports.
and sharing and no.
Participation ribbons.
Yeah.
No.
You either are or you aren't. And in those cases, you aren't. I can't imagine sharing a state championship.
No,
and the competitor in you, right, that we just have anybody who played organized sports, not even didn't play at a high level, didn't mean play it well, but you are trained, right, throughout that competition to prefer to lose than tie.
Yeah.
As dumb as that probably sounds to a lot of people.
But I saw it play out. I covered a high school girls state championship
and both teams are doing what at the end of it?
Crying.
Yes.
Because they don't want to tie. They would rather lose and cry. It feels better to lose and cry than to tie and still feel like you didn't win.
Yeah.
And then you cry.
Sounds like Adam's anticipating history here. Three-peat. If you win 3 in a row, and both have said they're not going to, but boy, wouldn't you think long and hard about retiring if you're Andy Reid and Travis Kelce?
Yeah, I mean, sounds...
They're both playing.
For sure, like they're coming back. Yeah, but what's the difference? Like, just because if they go to another Super Bowl and lose, you're saying?
No, I think just like, man, how do you do it any better than this? How many people at your Super Bowl party will complain about the number of times they see Taylor Swift on their TV? It's a complaint
Probably
I've never really understood.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
Who cares? For fractions of a second every time.
Yeah, and it hasn't been overwhelming. There have been times the last few weeks I've been like, when are we going to see Taylor Swift?
Is she there?
When are we going to see Taylor? It's taken a while. And we didn't watch pregame, so we didn't get the walk in. But it's not, maybe if they score a touchdown, maybe if Kelce makes a catch. I don't feel like it's that overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I love Taylor Swift, so.
No, it's not overwhelming. And you're right, Troy. I mean, this is unfortunately what happens when you get 2 weeks between Conference Championship Sunday and Super Bowl Sunday. The mind just
wait until we lose football altogether.
Yeah, forget about it.
We'll be talking about what we're eating for dinner.
We've got a ton to do with the NBA trade deadline. Obviously, everybody is fixated on Luka Doncic to the Lakers and Anthony Davis to the Mavericks. But some other moves that I don't know will affect the outcome of the playoffs, but certainly makes things interesting as we play out the final few months of the NBA regular season and coming up on the All-Star break. We'll do our dirty, difficult, done as it relates to the NBA as well. And again, Pete Alonso back to the New York Mets. And I think it's a really big deal. We're back in a minute.
Great memories start with Alpenhaus. Amsterdam, Clifton Park, and High Adventure in Latham.
I'm Jeff Uklick. I'm owner of Bevs, and we're a beverage center in upstate New York. You're just going to have that wow component when you come in, like, wow, look at this place. It's bright, it's clean, it has everything that I need. Consumer is king. Be able to provide them a friendly environment and a place to shop, no matter where they are, whether they're down here in Saratoga or whether they're up in Queensbury. You're always going to get the same experience when you shop at Bevs. At the end of the day, if you walk in your stores, you're going to see a lot of people that have a lot of pride.
And now, back to Onorato and Miller. Sponsored by Alpenhaus.
All right, Ash, the Mets keep their power-hitting first baseman Pete Alonso. It makes a big difference in their lineup. We'll talk about that coming up. But listen, the NBA trade deadline has stolen all of the headlines, even during Super Bowl week.
And now, dirty, difficult, and done. Sponsored by Performance Industrial.
Bill Miller and his great team at Performance Industrial. There's never a job that's too dirty or too difficult for them to get it done.
Oh, starting with this one.
The Jimmy Butler saga, done in Miami. He was suspended, 3 times in the course of a month. And now he gets his wish and is traded. He had Phoenix, really, I think, at the top of his list.
Yep.
He allows this trade to go through from Miami to Golden State. Warriors are 11th in the West. Yeah. They started really hot. They've basically been a 500 team since then. And Jimmy gets more money. Here was a $53 million opt-out, I think, for next year. And so he basically that and another to go play with Steph Curry and Draymond Green, as everybody will point out. But here's the problem. For as much as I love Butler and he resemble, he and Draymond have similarities in their attitude. And
I would say attitude, not game.
No. But Jimmy's 35.
Yep.
Steph is going to be 37 in March. Draymond's going to be 35 in March. This would be a move made by a team on the verge of winning a championship. Hey, we got 2 or 3 years left. Let's try to go win one now. And the youth of Kuminga and Podziemski is not enough for me, paired with these other 3 guys to say Golden State can go win a championship this year or next. So I'm intrigued, but I don't quite understand the move if you're the Warriors.
I think you said it, 11th in the West means they're a fringe playoff team right now.
Yeah.
So for me, it's we need a move to get us into the playoffs, and then you see what happens. Because think about playoff Steph and playoff Jimmy Butler. Those 2 guys on a team in the playoffs, anything can happen.
Yeah.
I know there's not, you still have a half season to figure it out. We're coming up on the All-Star break. It's not like you're 2 weeks before the playoffs and it's like, hey, figure out the chemistry, figure out how you work together. And let's be clear, they've all played together at some point on Team USA or whatever it is. But yeah, I think it's one of those things like get us into the playoffs and then you see what happens.
I have loved Jimmy Butler, but to Troy's point here, this is like the 3rd team that he has forced himself away from: Chicago, Minnesota, and now Miami. And he has been the problem in those 3 places, or has decided to become the problem in those 3 places. And I love Butler's game. I love his attitude. I like his story, his upbringing, his background.
It's all good, but he's become less likable.
No, I wouldn't call it a big
Definitely not.
It's hard for me to put Draymond in a big 3. And I know
he has
Steph,
a big
Clay,
contract.
Dre.
Yeah.
But Golden
Even
State
Clay
hasn't had a big 3 since it was Steph, KD, Clay.
And even that is like a fringe big 3.
Ooh. Okay.
Prime Clay is decent.
Yeah, prime Clay is one of the greatest shooters in NBA history.
Well, he's got the greatest shooter in NBA history on his
No
own team.
doubt. That's why they were the Splash Brothers. Yeah, for sure. All right, the day of security for NBA stars, Ash, is done.
I mean, here's the deal. Okay. I'm not a big NBA person. I've made that known. I would watch college basketball all day, every day over NBA for the most part. I can't remember the last time that a trade floored me, but floored the entirety of the sport, the entirety of the sports industry, the media. And the reason it did it was because of, when's the last time we were surprised by a trade of a superstar? Didn't hear any chatter about it. I mean, he didn't know it was happening, which is where the security comes in. It's like the dude just bought a $15 million house in Dallas, closed on it a week or 2 ago, and now he's getting shipped to LA.
Still a nice second home.
He's probably not going to keep it. Who wants to go to Dallas when you can live in LA? But yeah, you think these guys are safe. And we were watching TV today, and it was like there are 2 people who are safe in the NBA and who can control where they go: LeBron James and Steph Curry, and that's it. That's where the list ends. It doesn't matter who you are. Luka Doncic is a 25-year-old superstar, a top 15 player in the league, a franchise guy. And that's the thing. I think you just thought that Dallas would continue to build the franchise around this guy, and that he was going to be the next Dirk. Like he was going to be the guy who spent his career there and rode off into the sunset. And it was like, see you, bye. So yeah, there is no security for anyone unless their name is LeBron James or Steph Curry. But I love that. I love it. I think it makes the sport more exciting. When has the interest been so high in the NBA other than this week? And yes, you said it's Super Bowl week.
Yeah.
And people are talking about the NBA. It's Adam Silver's dream.
And I think even though you're right, the Lakers would not trade LeBron in the middle of the night without telling him. The Warriors would not do the same thing to Steph Curry. But it is interesting because I think it fits your point here that LeBron didn't know about this trade either. So not only is it so it's his security here too, in terms of like being the person we are, hey, we're going to make sure you're good with this, right? Because that is part of security too.
There was no consultation.
The NBA is, however long now, been a players' league, but the last week would suggest it is not. Owners are trying to take teams back for themselves to decide, hey, we are going to do what we believe is in the best interest of our franchise, not because we're afraid you might demand a trade or sit out games or whatever. The fragility of the star, and it goes back to like the way we've seen Kawhi behave at times, Kevin Durant as well,
James
Ramona
Harden.
Shelburne reporting that the Suns locker room is a disaster right now.
Well, that's a whole different
I'm not
thing.
saying it is no longer a players' league. It is still. But it is interesting to me that both LeBron James and Steph Curry, who we say are kind of untouchables, were not really consulted in the trades that were made this week by their two teams.
And listen, I enjoy the idea of player empowerment and power, because at the end of the day, they're the ones selling jerseys and selling tickets. And I understand that, but they're making the money in contracts. It doesn't mean that they need input and to be able to run every piece of what happens on a team. I don't love that as much. So I'm cool with all the moves that have been made. Like for me, LeBron doesn't need to be consulted about everything that happens in the Lakers organization. If it's about his career, then yes. Hey man, we're going to get rid of you at the end of, you're a rental. We're going to get rid. Like if it's that kind of conversation, then yes, he needs to be consulted. But other than that, it's surprising though. Like AD is his guy. Yeah. He would have told you AD was his guy. And that's where it's like, ooh.
And AD fits with LeBron more than Doncic does.
Yeah.
Your thoughts just overall on the trade here. It happens late Saturday night. It doesn't. Luka and LeBron
don't work for me.
Yeah, and people who are like, oh, they can play together. Of course they can. Yeah. But superstars who rely on playing with the ball in their hands as much as these two guys do, their user rates are insane. Like it doesn't work. It won't work long term. And that's why the Lakers then moved somebody like a Dalton Connect, right, who was a first-round draft pick, thought to be kind of a really nice compliment on a LeBron James team because he can shoot it, he can spread the floor. That's good for LeBron. They trade him for a center, Mark Williams, who's 23 years old, because he's going to play well with Luka. Right? These are moves. The Lakers are building for post-LeBron. And if you're LeBron James, like, are you good with that? Can you rationalize that in your own mind? Or are you in denial to say, nope, I'm still a great player at the age of 40. This is still my team. They are taking the team away from you. Clearly, they're saying we are getting ready to move on beyond this year and maybe one more of LeBron. But it's Luka, it's Mark Williams from here on out.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, you have to be okay with it. You're not going to play forever, but he is one of the greatest of all time. If you think he's not going to try to win with Luka Doncic and like prove people wrong and say like, I can win with anyone, I will try to do it. He's going to try to do it. And he's sure as heck going to make Luka Doncic a better player, even if it's just by motivating him. Because everything that has come out of that Dallas camp, I mean, they just plastered Luka. They just ran him, like threw him out and then backed over him with the car. Like it was kind of dirty. We could have done dirty, difficult done that way. Yeah. Dirty and done.
Yeah. The video that surfaced of Michael Finley taking the beer away from Luka in a post-game celebration. It just was like,
they've done him dirty. There's no doubt. And so I think if he is a professional athlete in the way that all of them are, and he is built differently, it doesn't seem like he's built differently right now. I think this could be the greatest thing to happen to his career, because if he's built even a little bit like LeBron, this will flip a switch and it will motivate him to not be the doughy guy who doesn't care about his physical, abilities and his endurance. And he'll change that. And LeBron will help him change that, because LeBron's not going to let you be lazy and be his teammate.
No, they'll have Luka in all kinds of hyperbaric chambers before the week is out. Let's run through the rest of what happened here at the deadline. Kev goes to Chicago. Did we have this last week? No, right?
No.
Okay. So Kevin Huerter goes to Chicago. I guess last week we were talking about his jersey. It's Shen being retired and being a little bit of a weird spot for him, career in flux, if you will. And he hasn't played yet in Chicago. Even the Bulls have played 2 games since Kev arrived. And so the thought was, well, they'll probably move him again. And there was nothing ill will about that. It's just kind of the way the league works. And now, is he a buyout candidate in Chicago? Does he stick there beyond this year? He's got 1 more year left on his contract. I guess we'll see. There was a comment here I wanted to throw in here. Adam says Kev going to the Bulls will do wonders for his game. And we've thought that, right? Like, get out of the Atlanta situation, because it just wasn't good for him.
And the sack situation
and year 1
was
in Sacramento was awesome.
It was great
for the team and for him. And then it was
not great.
Okay, they've invested in Malik Monk. They really like Keegan Murray. It's just become a logjam kind of at that position. Kev went from starter to the bench to dwindling minutes. And
then
so
you lose
then
Mike Brown, who was his guy.
Find the next situation. Is this any better? I don't know that Chicago is a better situation for him, to be quite honest with you.
It may be a better situation for him getting playing time, but they're not going to be good.
Yeah, they're not going to be good.
But listen, there are some people who fit in the NBA and who will always have a place in the NBA, but maybe they're not going to have a place on an NBA caliber team unless that's further down the bench. So I think you kind of have to decide, like, am I good not playing the minutes and being part of a good team? And that's sometimes how it works. Or do I go to a worse or a mediocre team and get a little bit of run and then try to get on some, get the attention of another team? Sometimes you just got to work your way back into that, which unfortunately feels like the situation he's in is like, get on the court, show what you can do, and hope you get another contract after this one.
Yep. His former teammate, De'Aaron Fox from Sacramento to San Antonio, getting his wish to play with Wemby. And Zach LaVine goes back to the Kings in that 3. Yeah.
I mean, look, all the picks. It's wild.
Yeah. So LaVine from Chicago to Sacramento, De'Aaron Fox from Sacramento to San Antonio. I don't know if the Spurs make the playoffs this year or the play-in, I should say. But this is a really good build around Wembanyama. And I think the makings of a shift here were shown in San Antonio, bringing Chris Paul in. Okay, we need a pick and roll guy. Here's a veteran point guard who can kind of help Victor come along. Now he's got a dynamic point guard in De'Aaron Fox, who has many years left in his career, unlike Chris Paul. And this could be a really fun tandem. And oh, by the way, like, they have other good players.
No
like
doubt.
Devin Vassell's a good player. So
Stephon Castle.
Yes. So they're doing things the right way in San Antonio. Just got to be patient.
Yeah. And this is the type of move that changes a franchise, though. Like, drafting Wembanyama changes a franchise, but they got him because they were in the basement. Right. This is the type of move that gives Wemby some assistance. He can't win on his own, despite the fact that he's 7'4" and can just never leave his feet and put it in. This is going to be so much fun to watch because they're already fun to watch and they have guys who can feed him. You throw it within 10 feet of the rim and he can probably dunk it. which is the best part of his game. But you've got De'Aaron Fox feeding him. And oh, by the way, if Wemby isn't open, Fox will take it to the rim. Like, he's not, Wemby's not defending Fox, so he's probably going to be able to get to the rim.
Yeah, they're going to be a fun tandem. Gary likes your hat.
Oh, thanks, Gary. I don't think I knew that he was a Yankees
fan. Okay. To the land of the never to be heard from again, Chris Middleton, who was an all-star.
Yep.
And got a max contract in Milwaukee after that title run by the Bucks.
He was like
struggles to get minutes.
The yin to Giannis's yang.
Yeah.
Yang to his yin, whatever.
Now he goes to Washington.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is a much better deal for Milwaukee because
so
Kuzma can be the right kind of third player in Milwaukee where Middleton no longer fit in. He wasn't starting anymore. And now you can roll out Dame, Giannis, Kuzma.
It's interesting.
Brooke Lopez.
Yeah.
And Andre Jackson Jr.
Yeah, it's a fun lineup.
Yeah.
It's a fun lineup. Like, Kuzma's super athletic.
Very.
Super athletic. And I wouldn't say that necessarily about Chris Middleton.
No. Middleton was a shooter. It's a lot of what we saw from him. And yet the Bucks won't win anything because Doc Rivers is not a good head coach.
You're going to die on that hill.
He's just not. I'm not dying. I'm thriving on that hill.
Well, but it's the saying.
Yeah, no, I know. I will say it. Look, if they win something in his time, I will be happy to be proven wrong. But
I don't disagree.
It's not going to happen. DeAndre Hunter here. Interesting move here from the Hawks. I thought Atlanta's in the playoff picture. Hunter is in year 2 of a 4-year, $90 million deal. So you've got him under contract for a little while. He's shooting the 3 well. He plays good defense on the perimeter. He's a top 5 pick you invested in. Somebody's got to explain this one to me. Is Atlanta blowing it up and thinking we're starting over around Trae Young? What do the Hawks have left that you like? Obviously, they had the number 2 overall pick, and they have Zachary Reese-Shea, but this one did not make sense to me.
Yeah. Well, he was coming off the bench, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so he's not a starter for you.
Yeah.
So I guess like that tells you enough of what you need to know. You're not trading a starter. I know he's a top 5 pick, but he's not good enough to start on your team. So if you're going to send him somewhere and get all of this back, why not do it?
All of this.
I get it. It's bodies.
I like Karis
LeVert.
LeVert's a good player.
I do too.
Georgie Niang, 3 2s, who cares to me? The 2 pick swaps, maybe you get some value there in the first round.
I like it for the Cavs.
This is great for Cleveland.
Yeah, I like it for the Cavs. They've continued to build. Like, it's got to be like one of the most underrated builds in a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Can they beat Boston in the East? Cleveland? I don't care what the record says.
Maybe this year. Maybe.
They're a good team.
Yeah, maybe.
Look, the Knicks might even be better than Cleveland in a 7-game series. You need stars to win in the NBA playoffs. And the Knicks just might have more star power.
Right. Cleveland doesn't have a lot of that, but I think that's why it's an underrated build.
Yeah. And why they're fun.
Yep.
And why they're fun. Because outside of Donovan Mitchell having the ability to pop off for 40, 50 even,
50,
sure.
You
just get a more balanced approach.
Yep. I think that's it. It's like they've done it with really good draft picks and not guys who are going to, blow your socks off, but they've provided Donovan Mitchell with all the support he would need. And he's a guy that can go get you 40. So.
All right. Take a quick time out here on Onorato and Miller. Funny question from our buddy Jeff after the break. We'll also look at that Pete Alonso deal back to Major League Baseball. Rob Manfred, the commissioner, saying that he's getting a lot of emails from fans.
I'm sure he is.
Concerned about the lack of a salary cap. I want to see a picture of Rob Manfred answering fan emails And then I maybe will believe that that's actually a thing. We're back in a minute here on Onorato and Miller.
At Marcella's Appliance Center, our commitment is to you, providing essential appliances that families depend on for cooking, refrigeration, cleaning, and sanitation, plus appliance repair. You can have peace of mind that Marcella's is here for you today and every day, like we have been since 1957, helping you make the right choice with trusted brands like Whirlpool, Maytag, KitchenAid, and many more. Shop Marcella's Appliance Center in-store, online, or by phone. We're here for you.
The great thing about novices, no matter who you are, they're going to put all the detail in the world into your brand. I feel like they have been a big part of my success, making me feel comfortable. This is Harrison Butler, Super Bowl champion kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. Claim your crown.
And now, back to Onorato and Miller. Sponsored by Alphen House.
Bill Barnwell, who does a great job for ESPN.com, like breaking down the probabilities of things to happen in a game or even over the course of an entire season, says Chiefs 27, Eagles 24. Now, when they met 2 years ago, it was 38-35, still a 3-point game, but which would mean
a Harrison Butker kick would make the difference. Those are two good kickers in that game.
I have a bet on FanDuel.
I love Jake Elliott.
A bet on FanDuel for there to be a 65-yard field goal or longer made in this game.
That's long.
It is, but I thought
you've got the two kickers who can do it.
And two kickers who could do it. So
I'd say Elliott has a better shot than even Butker.
Oh, no doubt. But at the end, I need something at the end of the first half. That's what we need. End of the first half, 2 seconds left. Run him out there. See if he can make the 66-yarder.
We're in on some squares, right?
Yeah, I hate squares.
I won last year. First quarter.
Yeah, not Super Bowl, but it was like a Thanksgiving Day game or a Thursday. Yeah.
That's not as fun.
It was done in conjunction with Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so I don't know when that. But it wasn't the Super Bowl. I hate squares, and I get it.
Why?
People do it. It's a way
something.
to but
it's like betting.
No, it's not. No, it is not like betting.
I know it's all luck.
Yes,
but
it's
at least
way too
it's
random.
like betting in the way that you are giving yourself something to cheer for. You are putting your money in something that allows you to cheer for something. I put my money or your money in something that allows me to cheer for something.
I'd rather give you $25 and say,
bet randomly.
Here's FanDuel. Go bet $25 on something to happen in this game, because you will take an educated approach, and say, okay, I'll take the Chiefs to cover. Right?
Prop bets are as BS as it gets.
They're difficult.
People who bet on the coin flip. That's
not. Yeah.
But I'm saying like under over on Anthem. That's all people bet on that stuff.
I think if you enjoy playing Super Bowl squares, good for you. You should do that. I'm in favor of it.
I generally play like one.
But you should not approach it in a way of like, I might win $500. You're not going to. It's so random. You have no say.
Someone wins.
Of course, the point. But you have no say over the numbers.
I know.
If somebody said, hey, it's $100 a square, you can pick your numbers. Now I'm interested.
Well, that's not how it works.
I get it. I view it always as a donation to whatever is the money is being raised for, right? So it isn't like a bar where I got $100 squares, right? And that money is just going to nothing, right? I am happy to make it as a donation, and I never expect to win.
How many? I don't know how many squares are there in total? There has to be a finalized number.
Yeah.
It can only be so much.
Is it 100? Because
Maybe.
You've got 0 through 9. So 10 numbers and 10 numbers, that's 100.
Okay. 4 people win.
Yeah.
At random, 4 people win. It could be the same person 4 times.
Right.
But 4 people win.
Yeah.
That's not the worst odds you've ever had. 4 out of 100.
But it could be 1 out of 100.
Yeah, I get it. But at least 4 people win. It's not like playing the lottery.
Well, I don't do that either.
Well, I don't either because I think it's stupid. You're going to play this. Are you going to do this? Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so our buddy Jeff wants to know, what new hobby have you picked up instead of watching Syracuse basketball get destroyed? Underwater bowling. I like that. Well, probably less painful to try to hold your breath for that long than watching this basketball team, I would imagine.
I had it on, but it was like...
Did you last night? Did you keep it on?
Yeah. Had a friend over, wasn't really watching. It was kind of, I don't know that it was muted, but it was very low. So you're not really paying attention because by the time, it's very quickly a 15-point game with this team. Yeah. And at that point, I don't believe anybody's coming back. So it's just sort of like, I think I probably said this team stinks like 10 times. This team stinks. This team stinks. There were a ton of Duke fans in the Dome, which makes me so freaking angry because
it's close.
I hate all the blue in the orange, not the right color blue. The wrong color blue.
Yeah. Sam wants to know.
Man, this is a conversation we've had a bunch
every
this
week.
Year.
It feels like every week.
Yeah. And this is my answer every week, but I feel like at some point it's going to have to change. I still believe they're going to give him another year at least because of the recruiting class he has coming in. It's a very good recruiting class. So I do believe Adrian Autry gets another year. But the more that they lose and the more that they lose by 20 and 30, you can only handle so much heat.
Look at where the minds immediately go. Troy says they won't fire him because GMAC isn't ready. Sam says GMAC could be considered.
I'm sure he'd be considered.
Could they hire Jerry McNamara even if he has 2 seasons at 500 at Siena? Is that enough to get the juice back for Siena basketball? Just because it's GMAC, even though he didn't win at Siena? Yeah.
Probably.
I mean, he's a legend there.
Yeah. And the thing is Siena's doing pretty well.
Yeah,
so
they're doing just fine.
Yeah.
They're 500, right? Yeah. Okay. And I don't think anybody expected year 1 turnaround.
No.
From McNamara.
Yeah, and he's done okay. I mean, he literally started with a blank slate. He had to fill that entire team with freshmen and transfers. Not easy to do.
Speaking of college coaches, Greg Gattuso's leaving UAlbany.
Good transition.
Take a position at Penn State. He's going to be the senior defensive analyst for the defensive line at Penn State.
A lot of defensive coaches.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. These big programs. Played
at Penn State.
Won the national championship there under Joe Paterno in 1982. And he's from Pennsylvania. And
yes,
so
he's from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so farther west than State College. But he's halfway there. I love the move for him.
Me too.
I'm going to say it and then I'm going to have to maybe explain it.
Okay.
The grind of FCS football.
I mean, coaching in general, but yes, FCS is next level.
Just to try to keep up with that year to year to year and have the expectation that you're supposed to win year to year to year is one unreal. It's daunting, it's exhausting, and it's unrealistic. It is unrealistic that this UAlbany football program is going to win or be uber competitive every single year. It's not going to happen.
It's going to be like every 5th year.
Yes.
Like
that should be enough.
You'll have a doozy and then
everybody will leave.
You tear it all down.
Everybody will leave to be the 3rd string quarterback at Miami because of NIL. You cannot keep, and it's the same for mid-majors in basketball. You cannot keep kids if they have one really good year. Guess what? They're leaving.
See you, bye.
So the expectation that you should be able to win every single year is just unrealistic. And I think that would be really difficult as a head coach to put yourself there and to struggle with that year to year to year. And Greg gets an opportunity to go to Penn State, which I'm sure he loves. Like he's been an assistant coach with these big programs in the past, Pitt and Maryland, and now to kind of do it on a not so nitty gritty everyday practice field level, I would imagine, right? Like maybe higher level kind of analysis, looking at video and
he may
recruiting
work with
guys
kids a little bit, but
that.
Yeah. I'll tell you what.
Okay.
There aren't a lot of people who, and we've been around a lot of people in our days in this area. There aren't many better humans than Greg Gattuso.
Yeah, we love him.
We've gotten very close with him and his wife and all of his farm of animals, who we all love. But they don't make him any better than that. So we're happy for him. I really hate Penn State. This will make me, Coach G, this will make me cheer for them a little bit more. It will.
Okay.
It
and
will.
You don't have to.
It will. Because I love him so much that when I think of Penn State now, I'll think like, oh, okay, I'll cheer for him just for Coach G. That's it.
National championship game. Penn State against Oregon. Who are you rooting for? Oregon. And you can say that. That's okay.
I will not, because I would want him to win a national championship.
He already has one.
I know, but it's 100% true. When you have someone, I now have a vested interest. I have someone who I know, who I really like, on a staff, on a team. Guess what? Now that's where my heart goes, because I don't care about Oregon. If it was Penn State versus Syracuse, you could bet your bottom dollar I'm not going to cheer for Greg Gattuso ever. I'll cheer for my team. But if it's not my team, then I'm going to cheer for Greg Gattuso.
Okay.
I hope next year's Penn State, Oregon.
Troy, Michigan guy may be here. Funny. Okay. And yes, to your point, like if you could keep and Jared Verse is, I know we go there, but like nobody was keeping Jared Verse.
Nope.
It's the ability to keep a kid like Reese Poffenbarger, who was never going to play at Miami anyway, and now goes to North Texas for more NIL money. And good for him. Right? Like I am not ever going to crush a kid, a player, for taking the money. It's a smart business life decision. Fine. But you've got to find a way to make it equitable for these programs to potentially keep kids.
And we've talked about Greg has coached Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
He's coached Jared Verse. Jared Verse might be his biggest win. And I don't know who else, but like to pull that guy to UAlbany, he was clearly under-recruited.
As a tight end. He was a tight end,
and
right?
And they found something in him that they thought, this is a guy that can do some stuff. Nobody else saw that. Greg Gattuso and his staff saw that. So for me, that tells you all you need to know about how good he is at his job and the people around him are at their jobs. How do you miss on that guy?
Yeah.
He's an NFL player who is also, he was an All-Pro this year? I believe he was. Pro Bowler. Yeah.
Should be Defensive Rookie of the Year.
I mean, from UAlbany.
Yeah. Ryan Day's redemption here from...
You should have said Redemption Day.
Oh.
Missed opportunity.
From bum on the side of the road in Columbus to the second richest deal in college football, $12.5 million per year. Ohio State adds 3 years to his current contract. Winning cures all, does it not? My goodness.
Here's the thing, though.
Will they still rip him next year when he loses to Michigan?
Yeah, and it's so hypocritical because I have talked to both sides. I've talked to Ohio State fans and Michigan fans, and there are people who will tell you it matters more to beat the other team than to win a national championship. Guess what? You lost to Michigan. You won a national championship.
Right, who cares?
It's all that matters. It's all that matters because people don't talk about, I know people do talk about it, but other people don't talk about how long it's been since you've beaten Michigan if you win a national championship every year. Yeah. Who cares?
Yeah. I agree. But fans in general don't feel the same way, which I'll never really quite understand.
I don't get it. Like, you're going to tell me we're going to lose in basketball to Duke every year, twice a year, and go to the Final Four? Cool. Yeah. I'm good. Yeah. I don't care. North Carolina, I don't care what team it is.
Right, just don't lose to them
Back in
at
the day,
Final
UConn,
Four.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Happy to go.
Yeah, I'm with you. Give me the long-term success than that one day, right, where we have seen that anything can happen. That and believe me, Michigan was not a better team than Ohio State this year.
No.
So the worst team can win on that any given Saturday, right? And so, man, give me the long-term success. Day is 70-10 in his career at Ohio State. The guy
Ride with that.
wins. And I'm not saying I love him as a head coach, but the guy wins. So here's Troy. He is a Michigan fan. This just wasn't.
It's the dumbest thing. I can't. If you never win a championship again, but beat Michigan every year, it doesn't make, it goes against everything in sports. A rivalry can never mean more than winning, ultimate winning. Just because you win one game, if that was the only game you won all year, you would never have a coach for more than 2 years. Fired. So it's not true. It's just not true because no coach would ever survive it. Just winning in the rivalry, but never winning a title. They wouldn't survive it.
It is outside of a national championship. It is how these head coaches are judged.
I get it.
Harbaugh forever, right?
Can't win.
Couldn't beat Ohio State. Then he finally did and won a national championship. Even like Lloyd Carr, John Cooper, these guys in the rivalry, like they are viewed largely based on their success or lack thereof against the rival. Instead of how many national championships did you win, which I find really interesting.
I mean, I think it gets to national championships at some point. That's ultimately how a coach will always be judged. But the rivalries, there's always like, oh, he won 3 national titles and he won 75% of his games against Michigan or 75% of his games against Ohio State.
Yeah.
It's always been that way.
I don't like this year. If you're Ohio State, yes, this is a great year, and I don't care what we did or didn't do against Michigan.
And it should mean even more because you had to sit through Michigan winning it last year. So, like, now let's go do it. Let's be the ones who are left standing at the end of it all. Doesn't that make the most sense?
Pete Alonso back to the Mets, 2 years, $54 million, opt out after one season. He's going to make $30 million in year one. If he has a great year, he can opt out and try for a long-term contract somewhere else because it probably won't be in New York. He turned down a 7-year, $153 million deal in 2023. So annually, he's doing better here than he would have at that long-term deal, but the security would have been greater, obviously, with the long-term deal. Thoughts on this? I love it for the Mets. I don't love anything about the Mets, but I love this for the Mets because it felt like had Alonso not re-signed, the addition of Soto just would not have been enough. They needed to add Soto to Alonso. And now this lineup, the top 5, I'll call it. Pretty darn good.
Yeah, and they protect one another. And that was the whole thing about getting Soto with the Yankees was like they provide Aaron Judge provides protection. He provides protection to Aaron Judge. Like that's when the best lineups are built. So I think this is what happens with Alonso is there's protection now built in for Soto and the other guys in his lineup. Let's be clear, though, it didn't sound like anyone else was biting on Pete Alonso.
There was no market
so this
for
was
him.
it. It was his only choice.
He's 30 years old. He has the only player with more home runs since the 2019 season is Aaron Judge. It surprised me on the surface. Nobody wants Pete Alonso. And then when you start looking, well, nobody needs a first baseman. Nobody needs a right-handed hitting first baseman. Nobody needs a 30-year-old right-handed hitting first baseman. And nobody needs that same type of first baseman coming off a career low in terms of home runs. And so is it the market trying to project what Pete Alonso has become as opposed to what he has been? in Major League Baseball, because it was surprising to me. Like, you got a guy who you put him in there every single night, hitting 4th or 5th, and he scares the heck out of you in the middle of the lineup. It's good for the Mets here, and maybe it doesn't live beyond 1 or 2 more years with Alonso in Queens, but I think they needed to make it happen to try to stay competitive in that NL East. Yep.
Okay.
Salary cap could take center stage as Major League Baseball has bargaining talks coming in 2026. The CBA runs out at the end of the 2026 season. And Rob Manfred, the commissioner, says he's getting emails from fans concerned about the lack of a salary cap.
Where is his public email address? It's somebody like me in the back answering it. Like, oh, thanks for your concern. We will, take it into consideration.
Yeah, look, I don't doubt that fans are concerned, because look at the way the Dodgers, Yankees, Mets are spending. Padres, I get it. But fans are not going to dictate whether or not there's a salary cap in Major League Baseball. Owners might come to the CBA table and say, hey, this is getting a little crazy here, guys. Like, we need to put some kind of soft cap on the sport. There already is a soft cap. You have a luxury tax that teams then have to pay.
I mean, my guess is maybe he's getting railed on social media. Like, they're really blasting him.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
He's Rob Manfred. It's been his whole career. And as the commissioner, feels like he's gotten slammed.
Yeah, he's made a lot of bad decisions. And I rip him to his credit. He's made a lot of good decisions.
Some of those things were okay.
Right. The sport is headed in a better direction now because of some of the pace of play stuff that Rob Manfred has put in place. Okay. Conference Championship Sunday. Eagles, Bills, Commanders, Bills. I was 2-0. Ash, you were 1-1. Okay. So here's where we stand. Tied at 57 and 49 with only one game to pick, and that is, of course, the Super Bowl. We put the spread up earlier, 1.5 in Kansas City's favor. We decided all communication goes dark. We won't know who picked who.
Emails separate to our graphics guy.
And here's what we ended up with. We're both on the Chiefs. So one way or another, we will finish the season tied in our picks. We'll either be 9 games over 500 or 7 games over 500. Not bad.
Good thing you're not my sister.
Yes. It's a very good thing. Do we believe this? Why did we both take the Chiefs here?
Because it's a pick 'em, and like you said, until someone beats the Chiefs in a big game, you don't bet against them. You put your money, or it's not money in this case, but you put your money where it makes sense to put your money. That doesn't mean I'm not going to root against our pick.
Okay. It doesn't matter. I mean, I picked against Tom Brady so many times in my life, and I was wrong so many times. And the one time I rooted for him in a Super Bowl, he lost. Yeah. So I am not going to pick against Patrick Mahomes, as much as I think the Eagles have as good a shot.
They do have a shot
as any
for sure
to win this football game. I think it's going to be a good game, and I'm going to try to stay awake for the game. That's all I can promise.
Work and then a nap.
You know it. Enjoy the Super Bowl, everybody. Be safe this weekend. Thanks for watching Onorato and Miller.